Today's project are these nightstands. I got them each for $8.98. So I got them half off at a local thrift store, and I liked the clean lines, and when I opened up one of the drawers, come to find out they are American of Martinsville, which is a great brand. They're not solid wood. There are some wood components on it, but you can tell from the back that they're particle board covered over with veneer. I make most of my money from actually flipping furniture, not necessarily doing YouTube videos. So I'm always looking at pieces and buying them specifically for what is my rate of return. What's my return on investment of a particular piece? I want things to look high-end. That's kind of the style I like. I have a very traditional look. I like high-end pieces. I like things that are quality. And so sometimes I like to glam things up a little bit too. So how can I make these look high-end? And so my initial thought is I'm gonna paint them black. And then to make them just a little bit more distinctive, I'm gonna put a pinstripe of gold wax around each of the drawers. I may or may not add hardware to it. I don't know if it's gonna need a little jewelry just to kind of make it look a little more high-end. It may be fine just with the gilding. So that's my initial thought. But I'm gonna get them cleaned up, sanded down, primed out, and then I'll make my final decision. So here we go.
So overall, they weren't in too bad shape. Obviously, they had some scuffs and some gouges. I think the tops were laminate. I'm not really sure, but you can see I have a good maker's mark on there. And so my plan is just let's get them cleaned up. I'm going to have to fill in some of these areas. I have some areas on the corners that are going to have to be recreated with Bondo. So I'm just going to get in and start cleaning them, and that always kind of helps me assess what I need to do as far as repairs go. I'm going to go in with a degreaser and give it a really good clean. I'm not sure why they always leave these little staples on the bottom, so I made sure. I'm going to take these off. I don't think we need cardboard, and we don't need staples anymore on the bottom. So I was missing one of the backs on them, so I decided I'm going to take the one off that I have and use it as a template to cut the other one, which I'm glad I took it off because you can see there's just a lot of dust that collects underneath it. So it'll give me the opportunity to really clean it well, and then I'll reattach it later. I got some board from Lowe's that I'm going to use to cut a new backing. So I'm going to use the one that I do have as a template. I'm just going to go ahead and trace it, and then I'll pull it back off, put some blue tape on it, and then I'll go ahead and trace it again. The blue tape will allow me to get a cleaner cut when I use my circular saw. I don't have a table saw, so I just use my circular saw. And in order to get a really good clean cut, I usually just use my level and I clamp it down. So I get the guide on my circular saw, line it up with my line, and then I attach the straight edge with the clamp. And then it allows me to get a nice clean cut with my circular saw. So you can see it didn't go all the way through. What I found out later is I didn't have the depth set correctly on my circular saw, so I will adjust that. So I'm just going to adjust it to a thinner material because the last time I cut, I was cutting a thicker board. So I'm just going to adjust it down to the thinner material, and then it'll go through the material a lot smoother. I'm just going to scuff sand this down and get it ready for prime and paint. So on the drawers, I was just going to paint everything, but I decided to go ahead and sand them. And as I started sanding them, I was like, okay, this is really beautiful wood. So I just sanded to raw, and I've decided I'm going to go ahead and stain them. But for the body, I'm going to scuff sand. So I'm just going to go with a high grit. I'm going to go all over it, give it a really nice scuff sand, and then I'll go in and do my repairs. So I need to recreate this corner. So I'm going to use J-Weld body filler. This is a two-part system. It has the putty and then it has the hardener. So I like to mix it up in small batches. So you see I have the putty kind of spread around my plate there, and I won't mix it all up at once. I'm going to do small batches. So I'm going to use some straight edges, and I'm just going to fill in this area and just kind of recreate a corner. So I have to do it twice. So I'm going to start it, I'll clamp it up, let it dry, and then I'll sand it down, and then I'll have to do it again. You'll see later I do another round just to get a really nice clean edge. Then I'm going to go around them on the body part of both of them. I'm just going to fill in any areas that I see that just need a little bit of fill. When I do my repairs, I like to set it up with blue tape and then I clamp it all up. That way it doesn't stick to my wood. Now I'm ready to go ahead and sand it. So I'm just going to sand it down. I will go ahead and do a second coat and make sure that it's really nice in a 90-degree corner. Filler is sometimes hard to see when you really need it to be smooth. So sometimes you just have to feel it to make sure that it's really smooth. Because if you have an area that has a bump on it, you will be able to see that through the paint. And so I really just try to use my fingers. Sometimes I even close my eyes and I just put my hand over that area to see if I have a little bump or anything. Here's the corner after the second round of filler. I'm just going to take everything off again and continue to shape it with my sander. Okay, now that everything is sanded down and smooth, I am ready for my final clean before I'm ready to move on to my priming. I'm using Zinsser's 123 Bullseye Primer. This is a water-based primer. It works really well overall unless you have like a laminate surface, which honestly on this particular one, you'll see I have some problems. I'm really trying to use more water-based products, but I really love Ben's Shellac Primer. That's my favorite, never fails me. It'll cover anything, any kind of tannin bleed that you might have. It is like my go-to, but it's a shellac base and it's stinky and it's hard to clean up. So I'm trying to use the water-based one more. And so I'm still looking for the perfect primer, but you'll see later I have a little bit of problems with this one. I usually add a little bit of water to my primer. This is a water-based primer, so I'm going to add a little bit of water just to make it be able to go through my spray gun really smoothly. So I'm usually testing the viscosity of it. So I just stir it up really well, and I'm going to let it run off my knife. I'm kind of counting to myself. I want it to get up to around 20, and then I'll know I'm getting to the right consistency. I did a little bit more fill after the first coat of primer, so now I'm just going to get that sanded back down. Sometimes the first coat of primer is really great to put on, and then you can really see if you have some other areas that need to be filled in, so then you can do an additional coat of filler if you need to, and then you'll do your second coat of priming. You can see I had some problems with the top. That's where I just sanded it. I was going to discuss sanding it. It just came right off. So I went back to the store and I got the Ben shellac in a spray can. And I just sprayed the whole thing. Ben shellac just never fails me. And so even though it's messy, I do love it. And of course it's easier in the spray can. But I was only able to get both of the tables done with one can of spray paint, and it's like $20. So it's really expensive, but you know, it works, and so that's why I keep using it. So after that, you can see I was able to sand it, do a little scuff sand, and I did a little scratch test, and it works perfect. So Ben shellac for the win. I'll give it a second coat, and then we'll be ready to move on to paint. So I usually decant my paint, but you can see I got a little overconfident thinking that I could just go ahead and pour it in there, and I made a huge mess. So I even make big messes, and it's okay. Sometimes we make mistakes, but we are human, and I just wanted to show you this because I wanted you to know that we all make mistakes, and it's okay. I'm using the Erlex 5700. This is a great little spray gun. I believe Wagner bought Erlex, and so they're actually manufacturing it now, but I've been very impressed. It's kind of a step up from the Homewright, but it's not quite as expensive as the Fuji, so it's kind of in between, but it's an all-metal gun, and it sprays beautifully. I'm going to give a nice little scuff sand in between coats, and I'll clean that off with a microfiber rag, and I'll be ready for my second coat. I sanded the drawers to raw, and now I'm ready to apply some gel stain. So I'm going to do a slip coat first of mineral spirits, and that's just going to help the gel stain go on a little smoother. And then I'm going to apply gel stain by General Finishes in the color Java. I let that dry overnight, and then I decided I'm going to go ahead and do a pinstripe of gold around the perimeter. So I used very tiny tape. This is about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to put it along the edge. I'm going to put another piece right next to it, press it down, and then I'll pull my first layer up. And that's going to be the area that I'll paint in. I'm going to do that all the way around the drawer. Now I'm just going to clean up those little edges. You want to just hold down your putty knife firmly, and then you're going to pull the excess tape really fast. Once all those little bits are cleaned up, then I'm going to go around the perimeter with some painter's tape. That's going to create a little channel where I'll apply the gold wax. I'm using some decor wax. This is by Redesigned by Prima, and the color is Eternal. and I'll have it linked in the description below, but it's really easy to use. It is a wax, so it does seal itself. I will seal it in with the drawer as well, but you don't have to necessarily seal it. It will cure on its own within 30 days. If you get any wax, you can always use some mineral spirits to get it out, or you can just rub it real quick while it's still wet and it should come right off. I had a couple spots that I got a little heavy-handed with when I tried to get some of the gold off. So I'm going to tape off the gold and I'm going to do a second coat of Java stain on the drawer. I decided to go ahead and put some hardware on this. So I'm just going to do a knob in the middle. To do this, I'm going to measure across the top and I'm going to find the center. I'm going to mark it and then I'm just going to double check my measurements from left to right. Now I'm going to measure the height of the drawer. It was 7 inches, so I'm going to go in the middle. And so I need it to be 3.5 inches. So I'm going to adjust my little jig here to 3.5 inches. Now I can simply put the hardware jig on the top, lining it up again with that little mark that I made earlier, and then I can just simply draw in my hole. And because I'm super cautious, I do go ahead and remeasure everything just to make sure that it's correct before I actually drill my hole. Now I'm going to seal everything up with the Osmos Poly-X oil. It is a hard wax oil and it provides a very durable finish and a really beautiful low luster shine. You simply wipe it on and then you wipe off the excess. The last step will be reattaching the back. So I'm just going to use my brad nailer that's attached to my small air compressor, and I'm just going to get those backs reattached. So let's look back at the before. Obviously, you can see I had a lot of damage on some of the sides. I had to do a lot of fill with the body filler, but those tops I think ended up being laminate. I did have several wood components on it. The drawers ended up being beautiful wood, probably like a walnut or something, but had to kind of recreate some of the corners because they were a little beat up. But it was a great brand. You know, I have the maker's mark, American of Martinsville, so they were a really pretty design. I love the modern lines of them. So after a little bit of body fill and some priming and some painting, so here's the finished product. Do you think they look more high-end? I kind of do. I kind of think they look high-end. They look better in person, to be completely honest. Pictures, man, they show every flaw. That in person they can look perfect, and I start taking a picture and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't notice that before, which is actually really good because let me show you. See that drawer on the left? that has some spots on it. I'm not okay with that. So that's going to get taped off, and it's getting another coat of Java stain before I go ahead and try to sell them. Plus, you know what? I'm going to shoot both of them with another coat of paint just to make them perfect. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think they're high end? I don't know if they're high end, but I think they're cute. I'm going to list them for $325 for the pair. And I think that's fair. I think I'll get that. Tell me what you think. Thanks so much for watching.